What's going on, everybody? We're back. It's the Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 13 on this Monday, August 28th, 2023. Josh Callaway, Tom Green, James Jackson, week one.
Game week, baby.
Game week. What are the
here.
vibes? What are the vibes? Give it to me. What are the vibes?
I mean, it's got to be excitement. It's excitement all around, man. I mean, this is the best time of the year for college fans. I told you, everybody's 0-0. Well, I guess we've had week 1 for week 0 for some, but 0-0 most of the time you're around, and the fans and team and coaches, everybody can be excited because you never know what's going to happen, and that's the fun part about it. You don't know what's going to happen, so here we are.
Yeah, it's great. And we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, just the excitement to get to the season. We're getting closer and closer, getting through fall camp. And, this morning we had our first coordinators press conference with Jeff Lebby and Ted Roof. And it's really, okay, we're into the thick of it now. It's week 1. It feels amazing that we have games this weekend. You get that email that, for the game weekend stuff, kind of buttons and blast things up, some last instructions and things. And it just it hits different. So excited the fact that we're here. I mentioned it on the boards yesterday, but hugely thankful to all our VIP subscribers of Sooners Illustrated that have been so great since the site launched in early May with essentially no warning for people who are subscribed to a completely different site. And everybody, I was not sure how that was going to go at first, and the patience and all that and the gratitude has been so high. And the first couple months, especially, we're really finding our footing. We're still finding our footing, but the fact that we're to our first season now as a group is really, really exciting. So I'm fired up, and we look forward to Saturday. Saturday, 11 a.m., we get this thing rolling. So I'm pumped. And for you guys, first year covering OU, which is really exciting. Tom's first game at OU. So excitement level is high.
Yeah, excited for that. And, I know we've mentioned it a few times before on this podcast, but this week we're running another 50% off special. So if you haven't joined us yet, but you've been enjoying the podcast, you've been enjoying some of the stories that are unlocked on the site, and you want to jump in and join us as the season gets underway, we're running 50% off this week. So take advantage of that and hop on board.
100%. Now's the time. Week 1 is arrived. First game Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time. We're going to get into week 1 a bit, obviously. We're all fired up for the season here in just a minute, but we got to start before we get to there. The massive bombshell news of the weekend. Oklahoma, they got him. Ladies and gentlemen, they got him. David Stone, 2024 5-star defensive lineman, committed to OU on Saturday night. We talked about this a lot last week, and for good reason. I mean, this is a guy who is, if you ever watched him play, I mean, I think most people probably have seen highlights or something, but I think there was so much intrigue. Probably a lot of people watched that IMG game on ESPN over the weekend, or at least some of it. Guy was just a game. He was just pushing people around. He won MVP of the game afterward.
Yep.
I mean, just a wrecking ball human. David Stone is different. He is a different breed of player, and Oklahoma got him. We went back and forth. It was pretty much OU or Miami. He even said as much after the fact that Miami was still right in the thick of this thing all the way up until decision day. But in the end, he decides to commit to Oklahoma, return to his home state. Obviously, he was at Del City High School originally before transferring out there to IMG in Florida. Guys, I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week, but now that it's happened, how ginormous is this? I mean, this is as big of a recruiting win as Oklahoma's had in, several years, I would say at least. Big deal here.
Yeah. So I just want to give everybody a little peek behind the scenes here. So before we start recording the show, Josh will send James and I a little outline of topics that we're going to cover that day. So I like to write down notes. And after Josh sent today's topic outline, after jotting down David Stone, you want to see the first note I wrote?
Yes. Huge for the listeners.
Yeah, for the listeners, yeah. It's huge.
And that's probably an understatement. I mean, this we talked about it last show when we were previewing his decision, but this is a massive, massive win for Oklahoma. I mean, he's the number 6 overall recruit in the composite. As it stands right now, he is the 4th highest rated recruit that is committed to Oklahoma in the 24/7 Sports era since basically since 2000, 2001, around there. The highest rated defensive recruit, the only guys ahead of him, Adrian Peterson, Rhett Bomar, and Caleb Williams. This is massive. This is a cornerstone piece for a program that needs to get better at the line of scrimmage, especially as we've discussed, as they move to the SEC, which, those championships are decided at the line of scrimmage with the offensive line and that defensive line. And you need to be able to block, or you need to be able to disrupt. And David Stone is the type of guy that can come in and disrupt that line of scrimmage and be a difference maker for Oklahoma. Huge.
Yes, exactly like we said last week. I mean, this is the cornerstone piece you need, especially for a defense. And there's been so many guys talking about play with him that now you think, okay, the OU's in a good situation now. I mean, there was guys on Twitter yesterday, or X, formerly known as Twitter, was talking about, hey, man, this changes things for me. Justin Denson Jr., he tweeted, man, this got me thinking. That's in his quote. Now, we don't know. I mean, we're assuming about David Stone's commitment and, maybe flipping his commitment. That's pretty much what it is. And you got guys like that want to come. We've said all the local guys we've talked to, everybody that we've, talked around the nation, is like the next guy you want after they committed to OU was David Stone, because they knew how impactful he could be to the recruiting class. And I think that the dominoes are about to fall for OU now. I think that's where it is now. And that's why Tom says huge on his notes and has everything like that. That's what it is. It's a huge moment for OU football, because this is a very big commitment to get. I mean, like you said, Tom read off those names. Those are some of the greatest names in Oklahoma history, like that have come through here. So having a guy like David Stone be a part of that and be a part of the move to the SEC, if you do well in the SEC the first year, it can only get better with David Stone and Jackson Arnold, Peyton Bowen, all those guys that are 5 stars on the other side. I mean, just it can be an incredible jump start to the SEC with OU getting there. So that's why it was so important for him to get this. It was so important for OU.
Yeah, and just to build off what James was saying there, I mean, talent acquisition is the name of the game. And obviously you bring in Brent Venables as your head coach because he is a brilliant defensive mind, and you need a program that can play defense at a much higher level than they've been doing in the Big 12 when they're moving to the SEC, which has some incredible defenses at Georgia, at LSU, at Alabama, just all over the place. But the X's and O's only go far. You need the Jimmies and Joes. Mm-hmm. And since Brent Venables got here, he is now brought in, assuming, David Stone sticks with it, he signs with Oklahoma. They now have 3 5-star defensive players in Brent Venables' first 2 full classes. Mm-hmm. Between him, Peyton Bowen, PJ Adebawore. That's what you need to elevate this program to the next level as it makes that move. And we discussed it before last week. Talent attracts talent. Guys are going to want to play with the David Stone. Mm-hmm. Guys are going to want to play with the Peyton Bowen. Guys are going to want to play with the PJ Adebawore. This is the type of recruiting you need to do when you're making that move to the SEC. And like James said, I think this could just be the beginning of things kind of falling into place for Oklahoma on that front.
We've seen the graphic that the commits have been throwing around of the blacked out guys that are on the defensive line, the power line, and another spot just got filled up. I mean, now who's the other guys? This is going to be a fun situation. Try to figure that out now, because I think you can. If you're an Oklahoma fan, you can kind of look at the recruitment process now as like a relief. I mean, you got the biggest domino to fall for you. And so now it's like, okay, let's just see who we can add to this now. This is a fun process to be a part of now. And so that's where we should go from here.
Yeah, and you got to think Nigel Smith, certainly probably the next big one that we're waiting on. That's a guy who has a crystal ball in for Oklahoma from our own Colin Kennedy. And I'm excited to talk to Colin on Thursday more about that stuff, the ramifications of Stone. Obviously, like we were just saying, this is a guy, whenever you see the Bamas and the Georgias and you're like, man, those guys just look different. This is one of those types of guys. David Stone's one of those types of guys. And he just got to Oklahoma. So the player, obviously, but then what does this do for you, elsewhere on the trail? What kind of impact is this going to have down the road? How much does this help maybe flip a Williams-Nwaneri down the road, who wore OU stuff again, by the way, in their season opener game last Friday? You got to think that chance of maybe getting him back is much higher than before. Things like that. James said with Denson, who's a Michigan State commit, tweeting, "Man, maybe I should change my mind." That stuff is crazy. That's what kind of player Stone is, because he's an amazing player, but he also is one of those guys that people do gravitate toward. He's got a fun personality, and that big part of that is kind of, playing with people on Twitter and stuff like that. But he was no you guy for a while and ended up going that way. Now, just like we said, though, I mean, with Nwaneri, the flip side is also true with Stone. I mean, you got to make sure you keep him. Like Tom said, signing day is not until December. But it sounds like from what we've heard, and 24/7 Sports has been all over it. Brian Doan did an amazing job. Of course, Steve Wiltfong. It sounds like this was not a decision that Stone came to lightly. He really waited, and it sounds like he's pretty locked in with OU. It's a tough call, but I think OU fans shouldn't have to sweat too much. But in recruiting, nothing is ever official till pen meets paper. But I think Oklahoma can probably feel pretty good about this sticking, I think, until signing day.
Yeah, I mean, just because a kid's committed, you don't stop recruiting him.
Right.
They have to continue to recruit him. They have to, make sure that he sticks with this class because, again, this is a cornerstone foundational piece for that defensive front, and they need that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's where we get to with this season, which is about to kick off. OU, has a great season this year, 9-10 wins, winning the Big 12, things like that. I mean, you're in good shape. You're in good shape, and that's why it's so important this last year in the Big 12.
Yeah, certainly the biggest recruiting win of the Brent Venables era, right up there, just eclipsing Peyton Bowen, which is another huge win. I mean, he was literally signed essentially, and before the guy after he signed, or he sent his papers in to Oregon. But a lot of people look at the home field advantage and say, this is a guy Oklahoma should get. I talked with Colin on Thursday. I mean, he goes to high school in Florida now. I mean, the fact it was Miami. And Stone himself has said multiple times that his mom, his family, prefers Miami. They like the idea of him staying in Florida, not necessarily coming back home. So all that considered, NIL opportunities in Miami, certainly things like that. This is a huge win. It is. It's massive. It really can't be overstated. Venables, Todd Bates, they can take a bow on this one. This is a big-time get. You have to continue to build on it. It's not one guy that's going to save everything for you, but yeah, I mean, huge. Like we said, just absolutely huge. So we'll continue to watch how that ripples out in the time ahead. I'm pumped already for next spring, assuming he enrolls early to see him. But yeah, there you go. David Stone is a Sooner. And we'll talk about that, like I said, a little bit more with Colin on Thursday to get more of the ramifications that he foresees could come out of that for Oklahoma on the recruiting trail. So that in mind, what a great little pick-me-up that is going into the season opener for Oklahoma. We are at week 1. And with that, the depth chart is expected to be released on Tuesday morning. So I was hoping that this was going to be released today. Last year, it was released on the Monday of week 1. They decided to hold off until Tuesday this year, maybe just to not have to have the coordinator speak about it. Who knows? But they held off until Tuesday this year. So unfortunately, we weren't able to talk about it on this show. We'll analyze it more on Thursday's show, but I just still want to bring it up to acknowledge it. We won't talk about it real long because, like I said, it's going to come out Tuesday morning. A lot of people are going to listen to this probably after it's already out. But whenever that does pop off tomorrow morning, guys, my question to you is this. You don't have to go into a real long minute or two. Where's your eyes go first? What's the one thing you're excited to see when that comes out? What's the battle that you're going to, I guess, learn the most about based off the hierarchy that you see on the paper whenever that does come out? And again, expecting that on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a couple. Probably that number 2 cornerback spot. We talked about it. Woody Washington's that number 1 guy, but it sounds like that battle for that number 2 spot between Gentry Williams, Kendall Dolby, and Josiah Wagner is really up for grabs. And obviously, we're going to see all those guys play, but I'm just kind of curious to see, who earns that top spot. How many oars are we going to see on this opening depth chart? I'm thinking it's going to, I want to set the over-under at 4.5.
For oars?
Yeah.
I would say way over, but we'll see.
I'm only talking about on the top line. I think we could see more like on that, between the second and third.
It's not, maybe I'm misremembering. I want to say the Lincoln Riley era, there was like oars all over the dang thing. Last year wasn't as bad, but it'll be oar heavy. But yeah, on that top line, it's probably about right.
Yeah, I'll set it at 4.5. I don't think anything will compare to when I was covering Auburn in 2019, and the season opening depth chart had, I think, 6 running backs.
Oh my Lord!
Like sharing an oar in that top spot. So I don't expect anything that crazy. But yeah, certainly that second cornerback spot. Curious to see who gets that nod for the third wide receiver spot along with Jalil Farouk and Drake Stoops. Whether it's going to be LV Bunkley Shelton or Andrell Anthony, who again has just been making plays throughout the preseason. But yeah, I think those are probably the top 2 spots that my eyes will go to. What about you, James?
I mean, you said it, and like you said, cornerbacks is the one I was going to go with. But for the sake of being different for this podcast, I'll go with the running backs. I mean, just the running back room. Like, who's going to be the starting running back? Here we go. I mean, is that going to be an or situation as well? Because as of right now, it seems like a 3-headed race between Marcus Majors, Javonte Barnes, and Gavin Sawchuk. I mean, so who are they going to give a nod to somebody? Have they seen more in practice than we have been put on notice about? That's going to be the fun one to see. So just checking that out will be a fun part of looking at the depth chart.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is going to be interesting to see when we spoke to Jeff Levy today, he was asked about the offensive line, whether that's set or what the rotation is going to be like. Yeah, he said they're still working a few things out there, but the one name that he mentioned that has not been with that starting unit that we've spoken about all preseason is Troy Everett, the Appalachian State transfer. Now he's been working some at left guard. He's been working some at center. Curious to see just how much he's been able to push there. We're going to see him either way this week against Arkansas State. They're going to rotate him in. I'm just curious to see where exactly he slots in because I've heard he's been getting a lot more reps at center than at left guard. But obviously you return Andrew Rame, who's your starting center. So just want to see how that rotation shakes out. Obviously, these first few games before they get into Big 12 play, they'll have an opportunity to work some kinks out, move some things around. But that offensive line rotation is definitely something I'm going to keep my eye on.
That was something I think surprised me a little bit when he said that it's not all the way complete out because I thought the offensive line was pretty much set at this point. And so we'll see what happens with that. Because like you said, Troy Everett getting the name drop at the presser today. I mean, that's something different. So let's see what happens now. I'm actually curious to see how that would shake up. We're obviously going to see a rotation of guys in week 1. What's going to be the best situation for this offensive line now?
Yeah, and the important thing to keep in mind always, and it goes without saying, but I mean, there's no preseason in college football, so sometimes even coaches are kind of seeing what sticks, throwing darts at the board. When it comes to the week 1 depth chart, when the week 2 rolls around, that kind of maybe is a little more what you can expect to see moving forward. I would think Savion Bird's going to have that other guard spot, and then it'll just be what we've expected the whole time. You never know. I agree with running backs. I would not shock me at all to see Marcus Major be the top guy there, just to start at least, as the elder statesman, the old guy, and having a good camp. Wouldn't shock me. Gavin Sawchuk missed some time. He's been a little banged up. Wouldn't shock me at all if he's the top guy there, even though I expect all 3 guys to get a lot of carries on Saturday, probably about equal, frankly, in the opener. And then I also would throw in that D tackle room because there's I don't know. I mean, that's probably the room that me personally have the least amount of feel for who actually is going to be the starters. Yeah. And they're going to rotate. That's been the whole thing of the whole fall is the depth is so much better. Can play all these guys. Nobody's going to play a bunch of snaps, but who actually is listed as 1, and 2 in those interior defensive line spots. I mean, you could talk me into 5, 6 guys or so. I mean, Jonah Laulu, I think is in there. DJ Terry, Kelly, Grayson Halton's had a good camp. I mean, there's a lot of guys that it could be. DNs to a lesser extent, because I would imagine Bothroyd and Downs, but there's some variance there probably too. But yeah, a lot of questions to be answered. So look forward to that. We'll have a story up, I imagine, on the site as soon as we can tomorrow morning. Also, we have the Venables presser tomorrow, so we'll kind of balance that out depending on when it actually drops. But keep an eye out, keep up with us to see how things are looking going into week 1. So it is week 1. Oklahoma, Arkansas State on Saturday, 11 a.m. Central Time, first ever meeting between these 2 teams. We're going to get more into the weeds with the game itself on Thursday. That'll be kind of more the norm. We're going to kind of analyze the game a little more in depth, X's and O's, and also we'll give our picks and final score, stuff like that on Thursday. But just as far as this game goes, obviously, guys, Arkansas State was no good last year. 3 wins, 3-9 in the Sun Belt. Only had 2 wins the year before. Butch Jones, the head coach out there, if you didn't know that, bit of a mind blower. Former head coach at Tennessee, obviously winning against Oklahoma, about almost a decade ago now, infamously got Eric Striker's face after they won in in overtime there at Knoxville. Just some, I guess, initial thoughts on this game from just purely an Oklahoma perspective. I mean, what are you looking for? What do you want to see? It's hard to gauge when you're playing a team that Oklahoma's going to be, I think, is like a 30-something point favorite. I mean, they are expected to win this big. Just what are you looking for? What are you hoping to see? If you're an Oklahoma fan, what are you hoping to see on Saturday when you play a team that's this inferior? Just in general, what were some early thoughts here?
So from an on the field standpoint, you want to see fundamentally sound football. You don't want to see mental mistakes, penalties. Certainly on defense, which this offense is going to put up points. Oklahoma's offense is going to put up points. That's what they do. This defense was not good last season. They need to be much improved this season. They're hoping that improved depth and just more quality players up and down that roster on that side of the ball is going to produce that. And, between that and being in a second year in the system, even though you have a lot of new faces, you're expecting some level of improvement. You want to see a big jump. That's what Ted Roof said today. You want to see a big jump. Doesn't necessarily need to be a quantum leap in week one, because you want to build up. You want to get better as the season progresses, but you want to start trending in the right direction. And you can come out there and show that and put that on film. It's not only something for the fans to see, but it'll kind of stoke a little bit of belief in the players that their work is paying off. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, at least from a defensive perspective. Offensively, I'm curious to see how much action Jackson Arnold gets in this first game. They have a great opportunity to get him some playing time early in the season against some of these non-conference teams if things go as planned. But it's an opportunity that they have this year to just kind of groom him and bring him along and get him ready while getting mentored by Dylan Gabriel. But yeah, I think those are probably the two biggest things I want to see on each side of the ball. And then personally, from a selfish standpoint, I just want to see the atmosphere at an Oklahoma game. I've not been to an Oklahoma game before. I've only really been to a handful of games outside of the SEC. Even my time covering the SEC, like the only major non-conference road game that Auburn had that wasn't at a neutral site was at Penn State in 2021. And that was the whiteout game. It was a really cool environment, super cool to experience. But I'm just ready to experience something different and kind of take it all in. Like you said, this is new for me. I'm excited to see that and just experience that for the first time.
When you play a team as inferior as we talked about, as Arkansas State is supposed to be against Oklahoma, as you said about the 3 points is kind of what is being thrown out there. A 3 or 4 touchdown win is something I think Sooners fans should be looking for in this one. Like, that's just something you should expect. You should be able to blow out this team pretty handedly and do it with some style points. As you know, points has become a very big thing now with the college football playoff with only 4 teams getting in at the moment. So just look at that the way that is. I mean, offensively, you want to see some explosive plays. And what does that mean? That means plays that are more than 25 yards, really deep down the field plays. That could be, long runs or long passes that really give fans something to cheer for, something very exciting to go for. I mean, just to look after. So explosive plays on offense, as Tom said, not making a lot of penalties, keeping the game clean for yourself. Defensively, you want the defense to force some turnovers. OU did really well in interceptions last year, but can they keep that up? Can they build on that and really turn the ball over against the other teams? Can you produce sacks, which is something I think they lacked in overtime is the sacks and things like that. So just wanting a sound performance from the team, especially when you play somebody as inferior as Arkansas State is supposed to be. Game. That's what you should be looking out for.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably goes without saying you're looking for a whooping here. If you're Oklahoma, I mean, you're expecting to win this. This should never be close. And but it's not just that Arkansas State is a G5 team. Like I said, they're a bad G5 team. Just 3 wins last year and 2 wins year before. So I mean, I'm not going to pretend. And like I said, Thursday we're going to get more into the weeds of this and do a little bit more of what Arkansas State brings to the table. But this is a team and a program that has not been performing very well. It sounds like Butch Jones might even be a little bit on the hot seat there. So I mean, this is a game that you need to win and win soundly. And last year they kind of did that in the non-conference. I mean, obviously they beat UTEP pretty soundly. There was a few kind of lapses here and there. It was first game. You were kind of okay with it. But you remember Kent State. Kent State's a pretty good team, for a G5, a team that usually contends in the MAC. Kent State was leading nearing halftime. Oklahoma was getting shut out for like a long while against Kent State last year. They ended up winning that game by 30, but it was almost halftime, and it was still a game. I mean, it was competitive into the second half. You shouldn't have that. You shouldn't have that. You should get off to a much faster start this season with this matchup here. This should be a great chance to get out, get a huge lead, work some young guys in. I think anything short of a sound, 30 to 25 to 30 plus point win would be a little disappointing, so we'll see how that looks. Is there a certain guy, certain player or unit that you're in particular watching for, Tom, that you're looking forward to seeing on Saturday either for the first time in a uniform period or, first time this year, anything, any reason?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a few of those positions already before with the depth chart stuff, but I'm really curious to see that cheetah spot. How does the snap count kind of break down between Justin Harrington and Dasan McCullough? I think that's going to be really interesting. Like, those guys are both going to play a lot of snaps. And then how much do we see Peyton Bowen or Reggie Pearson there too? I think that depth, again, is going to really benefit this team going into the season. But that position in particular, like Ted Roof said today, you got a lot in that job description. A lot of things are being asked of you. You got to be real multiple, real versatile to be able to play that position. But I mean, we've heard so many good things about Dasan McCullough, what he was able to do last year as a freshman in Indiana. I want to see how that translates to the Big 12, to Oklahoma, and to a new position. And then Justin Harrington, again, he's a guy that, has kind of been a standout in the offseason in the past, and it's just never really matriculated onto the field when the season begins. Is it for real this time? By all indications, it should be. Seems like he's really made a lot of strides, especially with that position, especially, having a full year with that role and just knowing it. So, yeah, I think the cheetah position is the one I'm probably most intrigued in, seeing how that plays out on Saturday.
I'm curious to see Jackson Arnold, man. I know Dylan Gabriel's starting everything like that, but we talked about it. How many reps is he going to get in this game, and will he make an explosive play when he arrives? I mean, we've seen that with some of the past backup quarterbacks when Kyler Murray was behind Baker Mayfield and Caleb Williams was behind Spencer Rattler. I mean, when they back in, there's explosive play. Okay, you're more comfortable for the future. You're like, okay, this guy is already comfortable enough to do a play, to perform a play like that in this environment, which is what you want to see from a 5-star type of quarterback. So I think Jackson Arnold's my pick for that in terms of just somebody that you want to see and see how they perform when they get out there, when they get their opportunity.
Yeah, and on the Jackson Arnold note, I'll have something on the site a little bit later in the week on this, but you don't often see 5-star freshman quarterbacks just burst onto the scene and, be a starter or be a star right away. A lot of them are kind of eased into things. And again, Oklahoma has the opportunity to do that with him and kind of get his feet wet and see what he's comfortable with here in year one before he's kind of handed the reins of this offense. So obviously, the quicker you can get out to a fast start, the more opportunity you're going to be able to give him. I still think he'll have some packages throughout the game, but obviously if they're blowing out Arkansas State, they can get him in there and get him some quality reps late in that game and just settle those nerves, because there's going to be nerves that first time he's out there. No doubt about it. There's going to be nerves. So
you would hope, that Arnold would get almost the whole fourth quarter at least. If Dylan Gabriel was not able to get out of this game and it's the fourth quarter, then something went wrong. I'm just kind of generally interested, and I agree completely, Arnold and a lot of that stuff, but just on the whole team, this is an Arkansas State team. You're just kind of perusing some stuff here, Sun Belt preseason stuff. Pick 6th in their division in the Sun Belt, 6 out of 7. In their division, they have no guys, 0, literally goose egg guys on the first or second team, preseason all Sun Belt team. So Oklahoma should completely outclass them when it comes to speed and strength. I mean, all that. So, it should be apparent that, okay, Oklahoma is just flying on the field and Arkansas State doesn't know what hit them. Like that should be evident. So I'm interested in that because we've heard a lot, obviously the depth thing has been the number one talking point, but another one of the really big talking points has just been bigger, stronger, faster. Year 2 of Schmitty, better transfer portal class, better recruiting class. Like they're just a more athletic, just better athletes team than they were last year. So that should be very obvious on Saturday against Arkansas State.
And I'm sure
secondary. Nobody should be running past anybody in the secondary of the Arkansas State team. Secondary should be clamping guys up. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll touch on this a little bit more when we get into the actual game preview. But just hearing us talk about Arkansas State right now and how bad they are on paper, it's still kind of wild for me to wrap my head around, because when you think about how that program has kind of been perceived over the last 15 years as, a really solid group of 5 program that has produced some really good head coaches. I mean, they had a stretch there where Gus Malzahn was the head coach. Hugh Freeze was the head coach there. Brian Harsin was the head coach there at one point. Blake Anderson was a successful head coach there. And now they've just kind of fallen off under Butch Jones, which probably says something about the state of the program right now, considering just how well they were able to maintain things despite the constant turnover at the top.
Sick mascot too. Red Wolves. That's pretty dope. That's not bad. Yeah, I agree. It's just a few years ago, this was a team that, a respectable program, and not just trying to absolutely dump on them, but obviously the last couple of years have been rough. They have been. And it's not expected to be any different. Now, I will also say, I talked about it a little bit with the games last year, 2 years ago, and obviously completely different everything for Oklahoma, totally different team, coaches, everything. But 2021 season opener, Tulane came into Norman and nearly pulled off a stunner, and everybody left that stadium. I think, well, Tulane's good. So they won 2 games that year. So there's no given. Week 1 can be weird. It can be. It can be weird. Appalachian State beat Michigan one time. We all remember that. Weird things happen.
I was a freshman in college when that happened.
Yeah. So, Oklahoma should win this by a lot, but it's, things can get weird. Things can get weird. So looking forward to it, though. And we're going to have a lot more coverage throughout the week. Like Tom said, on Thursday, we're going to really dive further into this, and we're going to give our official game picks. I'll get Colin's thoughts on this game as well. So we'll get a little more into the weeds of the matchup, what Arkansas State does well, what they bring to the table. More so on the Thursday show. Any other things that you guys are looking for? Questions you have, anything like that? Obviously, we can get more into it on Thursday. But
I just want to point out what Tom just said. He read off a good list of great college coaches at Arkansas State that have been through there and been through that program. The drop off that you see now with that program, that just shows you how important it is to get the right hire at the right time. So Brent Venables right now, we've talked about him getting David Stone and all these 5 stars, Peyton Bowen, PJ, guys like that. It shows you, okay, you can at least know that it seems like that was the right hire at the time, because the program isn't going to fall off a cliff, assuming that they all, play to their potential and everything like that. So just getting the right guys is very pivotal when it comes to college coaches. So, shout out to Oklahoma for that and pretty much getting that done right.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So we'll see what they look like on Saturday. First ever meeting. History. First time Oklahoma and Arkansas State have ever played will be on Saturday. We're all going to be there. 3 of us, at least, I should say. So looking forward to that on Saturday, week 1. We do want to mention to keep an eye out. Obviously, going to have loads of coverage, goes without saying, on Saturday. But the plan is to do, James and I, a post-game wrap-up on the field, which will also be turned into a podcast for people who would prefer that kind of thing, but it'll be on the YouTube channel, obviously, as well. Shorter reaction, 10 to 15 minutes or so. Some initial quick-hitter thoughts on the game. So keep an eye out for that kind of special edition episode, if you want to call it that way, on Saturdays. And I look forward to bringing you that through all throughout the season as well. So look forward to it. Obviously, we'll get more into it on Thursday. You can expect these Monday shows to be a little on the shorter side. Obviously, once we get into next week, we'll be able to kind of recap the previous game a little more and things like that. So maybe a little longer than this one, but a little shorter. Thursday will be a little more long, in-depth episode on the next ball game. But I think that's it for us for now. Keep up with the site, Oklahoma.247sports.com. Already some good stuff there in this early part of week 1 and a whole lot more coming your way. very excited for the season to be here, guys, and look forward to getting this thing rocking on Saturday for the first game. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's time.
It's time. It's time. All right, that's it. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll get Colin Kennedy in here as well for some more recruiting talk, of course, and his thoughts on this ball game. So we'll see you then. For Tom Green, James Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys on Thursday to preview Oklahoma's Week 1 matchup against Arkansas State. We'll see you then.
See you.